Welcome back to Connect for Health, the live webinar and podcast series brought to you by Cigna Healthcare Middle East and Africa with a little bit of support from Mental. I, as always, am Scott Armstrong, I think, the founder of Mental, a platform that tries to tackle the stigma of mental health. And as always, I'm joined by my fabulous co-host, Maissa Khafajy, the head of strategic affairs and government communications at Cigna Healthcare. Nice to see you back again.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Thank you for being here today. Now, if you don't know, June is Men's Mental Health Month, and the statistics are quite alarming when we look at men's mental health. There is a massive stigma, and men are not leaning in and looking after their own mental health. And actually, we recently did, and if you saw the last episode, which is very well worth checking out, we were talking about the Cigna Healthcare UEE Pulse survey, and we saw that men were struggling with issues such as job security, financial worries, and also loneliness. So today, I'm delighted that we're going to be diving in to men's mental health. Now, if you're joining us live, remember you can get involved in the conversation. Please post your questions in the chat box. Particularly if you want to remain anonymous, just write anon at the start and I'll make sure that we don't read out your name. And I also just want to say that today's conversation is about lived experience. It's not clinical advice. So if you are struggling, please reach out and seek professional help. I've been it, I've done it, and it is absolutely fabulous. It's one of the best things I've ever done. So if you are struggling, know that you're not alone. But today I'm delighted to be joined by two guests who have their own lived experience and are also out in the community seeing what's happened. My first guest, Mr. Chris Bradwell. You might know him. He's the founder of British Dads Dubai, particularly on Facebook. It started as a simple idea that dads deserved a community too, and I love this. And it's kind of now grown up into a network of thousands of members. My second guest today, Mr. Chris Miller, who is the founder, and he's an ICF accredited executive coach, an LLP practitioner and a mental health first aider, and he's the founder of In-Cre-Mental, not mental, we're spelled differently as well. So guys, both, thank you for joining us today. This is a really important conversation, particularly it being June, and it should be men's mental health. It should be everybody's mental health month all year round. Yeah. Chris, I kind of want to start with you though, because obviously you're connected to thousands of men, thousands of dads as well, out in the community. We see the Cigna Healthcare Pulse survey. We're saying, look, we're struggling with loneliness. We're struggling with finances. We're worried about job security. And obviously it's been a tense time for everybody the last 2 to 3 months. But what are you actually seeing in the community? Are dads reaching out to you for help?
Yeah, I mean, we've had quite a few guys. We used to do a lot of anonymous posts on the group, which we've stopped because safety reasons, we don't want to have them on there. So I'm having a lot of guys message me personally asking for help. Yeah, we're seeing a lot more questions, people asking where can I get help for, to do with my mental health. So people are slowly coming out of their shells and starting to realise that they can actually ask for help. So we've had, lots of different questions to do with mental health. Obviously, we've got quite a few guys on the group that do deal in mental health as well. So that's also helps to have somebody I can direct signpost people to as well. So it's good.
Have you seen the conversation, or have you seen the reach out actually increasing, I don't know, over the years or over the last year, or, are men becoming more willing to reach out and actually ask
I think
for help?
some are. We do host, we have a breakfast once a month, which I did. I think we're nearly at 3 years we're doing that. It's just a very casual breakfast we do every first Tuesday of the month. Just a very casual place for people to come, have breakfast, sit down, talk if you want to, talk about business, talk about your family, talk about whatever you want. And it's a very casual breakfast. And we've also done men's time to talk, Zoom chats, which we've done quite a while, which we've stopped at the minute because the people that were doing it are busy within themselves, so we haven't had much time, which is something I want to try and get back to doing. So
when you're having those conversations, I know, Chris, you've been involved in those conversations or those times to talk, what are the kind of common issues that are kind of coming through? Does it gel with what we were seeing in that Pulse survey? What are the concerns, or what are the things that you see that men, not just dads obviously, but young men as well, which is really, really important right now. We've seen the statistics around young men's mental health as well as the kind of our age bracket. It's really, really alarming. But what are you seeing that people are struggling with?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for inviting me on. I think, as you say, it's a really important topic, and maybe because, the way that men deal with problems is quite often obscured. I think, certainly what we saw when we were doing Men's Time to Talk was, loneliness is a big one, that sense of needing a community, especially when you're expats and you're away from, where you grew up, where your friends might be and family. I think, certainly over the last few months, we've seen, massive rise in that feeling of uncertainty, and perceived lack of control. Around your own safety, the safety of those that you love, the safety for your work environment, and all of these things then interconnect with each other. And I think it is a really uncertain time, and there's no getting away from that. So it's what then is the solution? So it's I think it's helping people to understand. Uncertainty is a part of life. It's an important part of life, right? So, when you are faced with uncertainty, what can you do about it?
I think I remember a Tom Hanks video, which was like he was sat around the table with Leonardo DiCaprio, with Keanu, if you remember, and Robert De Niro, and he was saying, that the main phrase is "this too shall pass," and he was like, if things are, is that what
that's what Maissa says?
And it's like, if things are bad, you're struggling, things aren't going your way, this too shall pass. Think you've got it all sorted? Think you're comfortable? This too shall pass.
Absolutely.
It's that part of the fact that actually there's not, life isn't one destination that everything will be fine. But actually, we just got to kind of deal with this day to day.
I mean, one of the big things I certainly, try to encourage with the people that I talk to and the some of the workshops that I do is this sense of, you do have choices all the time, right? And we have this paradox within our brains where we are desperate for safety. Like that's what our brains want, is for us to be safe. So that safety is about everything being the same. But
Familiar.
we only grow when we are challenged. And so we are in this constant kind of balance battle, whatever you want to call it, of I want safety, but I grow when I'm challenged. And actually challenge can be really exciting, a great opportunity. But a lot of the time, we perceive it as a challenge, something to be scared of. So I think, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's why I got it engraved into my own skin, is it's like, I need reminding, when times are bad, times have been bad before and then they've been good. When times have been good, they've been good before and they'll be bad.
Chris there is talking about safety. I just want to remind you that this conversation is a safe space. You can reach in. Please ask questions. Please ask the guys, or even share your experiences or observations. We are going to be asking some polls later, so we want you to get involved and vote in them. If you are watching up on YouTube or listening on the podcast on Catch Up, you won't be able to get involved in that interactivity. But if you want to be with us live in the room next time, reach out to Cigna Healthcare for details of membership. And just to kind of reinforce the fact this is a safe conversation, I have struggled with general anxiety disorder. I take antidepressants. I've struggled with trauma linked to childhood abuse. And I also was diagnosed last year with ADHD and OCD. So we've all got lived experiences in this conversation. So if you do want to share, it's a judgment-free space, so please, I encourage you to do, particularly if you've got questions. Maissa, I mean, we were talking about men of different ages. I mean, obviously, you're a mother of boys. From a mother's perspective, what are you seeing, and what are the kind of things they're sharing with you, or what do you worry about when you see them?
With regards to the age of which my boys,
they're always your boys.
It's been quite challenging because I think they're still at that stage where, I mean, my 18-year-old had basically said that amongst the group, amongst the boys, the group setting that they're in, they're very open about talking about issues, whether it is challenges within the family dynamic, whether it's personal issues, whether it's just within themselves, how they're feeling. But there doesn't seem to be, I mean, that's the first step, right? The fact that you can at least express and you can vocalize it. But then I think to myself, but then that's still kind of like within an echo chamber. You don't really have that external perspective. Not many of them, or at least I've had that conversation with my son about, should he seek or want external, kind of like help, at least to give him the tools to help manage certain things in life. That I was all for it. And there came a point where he did say, yeah, I think I'd be happy talking to someone. And then, sure enough, when things got slightly better, he didn't want to go down that route. Now, with older age groups, I've realized that there seems to be a little bit more awareness. So I've been speaking to a few, just perchance, people that I've had conversations with in a community setting, and they're in their mid-20s, late 20s, maybe sometimes dads themselves, or new dads, like early 30s. And they're very much aware of the fact that they are going through something, whatever it could be, at whatever stage that they're in their lives, and that they have chosen to speak to somebody about it. So that awareness is slowly, kind of like being something. It's not as common as I would like it to be, but they're more forthcoming.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to ask, when you said the workshops that you have hosted, how do people know about the workshops? What are the demographics? What are they like? Are they kind of quite diverse? Are they people who are, say, in senior leadership positions? What can you say about, and over the course of the years as well, has that kind of like evolved? Does that look slightly different?
Yeah, certainly it does. I mean, predominantly in terms of workshops, it's more corporate side of things. So it's looking at, as you say, I think equipping people with the skills to, that's the thing for me. I don't want to coach somebody for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
I want to coach somebody to be able to, to
recognize
them.
fish.
Exactly. Teach them how to fish.
Yeah.
So in terms of the workshops, I focus very much sort of softer side of skills. The whole point of the name of my business is In-Cre-Mental. It's small steps.
Yes.
It's, I'm a simple person. I like simple things. Simple doesn't always equate to easy, but I do believe that if we boil down, what we're challenged with, you can get to what's my first step? What can I do today to make it even a tiny bit better? And, with some momentum. And I'm same as Scott, same as Chris. I've had my own challenges. I remember going to see a therapist, and it took me forever to go to see the therapist because I thought I'm a thinker.
Yeah.
So I thought through my problems. I'd seen them from every different angle. What's somebody else going to do for me? But what I didn't realize was that I'd created this tornado in my head where I'm seeing everything from every different angle and coming to no conclusions and taking no action. And what talking to somebody did for me was to help me to step out of that, to actually look at it externally and go, okay, so what can I do? And then the action. Thinking about stuff, is wonderful.
I want to circle back to that
sorry.
a bit, but I kind of want to stay with the point that you were both making there, which is, and it's interesting because you're saying your son trying to get to that point where he's like, I will go and talk to somebody, and then the minute the pressure's off, it's all fine.
Yes,
and we're seeing you look at the statistics in the US, and that's maybe an interesting market right now, but when you see the different in demographic, I think it's around 39%, 40% of men who are struggling with mental illness will go and seek treatment, whereas 60 to 66% of women will go and seek treatment. So we are a lot more reticent to come forward. And look, I know, and I'm going to put this to you, Chris. I mean, there's two words, or there's two sayings which are my least favorite in the English language. One is man up, which my wife says to me sometimes. But the second one is I'm fine.
Oh, yeah.
And I know in the history of my wife saying it over the last 18 years, it's never meant what it's supposed to mean. But the same is true of men, isn't it? That we'll say, I'm fine. And I kind of wanted to come to you, Chris, like either from a personal experience or just, from talking to the community and like, what does that actually look like? I mean, because we will say, I'm fine. We will bottle up. We won't share. But what does that look like in real terms? I mean, what's going on behind the I'm fine?
Sorry. No, I say it all the time. I'm fine. My wife comes home, you're all right? Yep, I'm fine. And I'm not.
Yeah.
I haven't been fine for a very long time, and I know that, which is partly how I started doing what I've been doing. I mean, I said to you before about I did a podcast with my friend Kieran, and it took me 6 months to do it. But like when I did it, I had a friend from home who messaged me. He's realised that he needed help, and he's got help, and he's a hell of a lot better than what he used to be. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was great because I've done something that I was very nervous about doing. I pretended I was fine for years. I've been through many things. I don't need to go into everything, but like there's certain things that have happened to me in the past 14 years of being out here that, I left Dubai for 18 months because we had an issue with my son who was born next door. I won't mention names, but, I don't like the place next door. My son was born there. We went through hell with that. And it kind of, I didn't realise at the time, like my wife went through it, she was upset, I don't know if she had postnatal depression, I think she did, but I think I suffered a lot more than what I actually realised because I didn't address it. And then every time my wife say, you fine? I'm fine. And I've always been fine, but I'm not fine. But I always say I'm fine because I think it comes from our fathers, a lot of us, because my dad was a tough man, he worked from 16 and he never really showed. Even now, he doesn't show his emotions very much because he's a man, and I think that's what we've all grown up with, this thing of being a man. You don't want to say, I'm not okay, because you then feel weak and you I think a lot of guys just mask the fact they're fine when they're not fine. So, I've lost my words now.
Don't worry. No, I mean, it's powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why I started Mental in the first place was actually, I didn't even know about my own mental health or what was actually happening in there. I saw my dad, and he's like you.
Yeah.
He was a working class man, strong, resilient.
Never cries.
Never cries.
I've seen him cry
talks about
twice
his
in my
feelings,
life.
Struggling with depression later in life, couldn't talk to anyone around him. Drank himself to death in 3 months, and he couldn't, and like I had a challenging childhood, but we had an okay adult relationship and he couldn't open up. And so it's that, there's a generational thing. Yeah. And I think
my dad does now though, he's older.
That's great.
As I said to my dad, I said, I never really understood you until I had my son.
Yeah.
And when I had my son, I then realised that, okay, my dad probably wasn't as tough on me as he just cared about me. But as a kid, I always thought he was just tough on me. He wasn't tough on me. He just wanted me to be a better man, I suppose. And then I've always been a very emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I cry at TV. I cry at everything. And I'm not ashamed to do that because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And I like to think sometimes that things that I do, and when I not so much bleed my heart out, but when I'm very open about my own problems, like you say, I'm on antidepressants. I've been on them for a long time. I'm not depressed. I just don't deal with life. I don't deal with situations, and I'm okay with that. But if everything I can do can then help somebody else, even if it's just one person, it's worth me doing that, because the whole I'm fine, we all say it, and I think there's a thing where you can, there's some sort of font where it says I'm fine. If you flip it over, it says something else. I can't remember what it says.
I'm not going to try that one just in case.
No. And there's a way of writing it, like when they do the open and then they do it and it gets to closed. You can do I'm fine, and you flip it over and it says something else. So it's pretty cool.
We've had a really good question, and actually I was on radio yesterday with Alan Farmer talking about this as well. Alina's message to say men probably, but this is interesting, show signs of stress and depression differently to women. Now, she's asking, as a partner, how can we identify signs of distress and help them seek support? But there is there are some kind of there are differences in how particularly stress and depression in men displays and comes to the fore, and it can be more around anger and irritability. It's not necessarily just sadness. Chris, I want to get your thoughts on that, and also how
as an angry man,
as a very angry man, as we all are. But literally, and when you're having that conversation with partners, and I want to come to you after Chris as well. But how can we have that conversation?
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, there's obviously a massive difference between clinical depression and anxiety and what we colloquially call, depression and anxiety, and, those sort of low moods so certainly, I'm in no position to deal with anything clinical. From the more colloquial side of it, I mean, what I tend to see, from a personal perspective, as much as I see, guys that I talk to, is that I become introspective. I draw away from everything. I feel like, even as a coach and all the kind of, courses and whatever that I've done and stuff, I still struggle with that sense of, well, I should be able to deal with this by myself. And, I think for some reason, whether it is, a generational thing or whether it's just a, biological thing, I think we do feel a very strong sense of, well, if I can't, like, what does it say about me if I can't? And I think there's a really, that gets to the real core of men. And I think that stops a lot of men from opening up. So in terms of having the conversation, I think, as I say, big differences between those clinical and colloquial. But from the personal perspective, it is always better to talk. Right? I hold on to things, and then when I eventually talk to my wife about it, I feel so much better. I mean, it's insane. I think the way to go about it is to accept that none of us know the answers to everything, right? It would be ridiculous. We would, even if you...
One of the ways, my wife. What is right about everything?
I'm not saying women. I'm saying men don't know the answers to everything.
That's exactly perfectly.
I think it is your partner can see that something is wrong.
Yeah.
You are not fooling anybody.
No.
So
women are very intuitive.
I mean, the sooner you accept that, what you're doing is having a negative. You're not only negatively impacting yourself, you're now starting to negatively impact the relationship dynamic within your family, whether that's with your wife or your kids or whoever. So accepting that, right, and not going looking for solutions. That's the thing. I think sometimes the communication is a struggle for men and women because, we want to help. As human beings, generally speaking, we want to help people who are struggling. Sometimes people who are struggling just need to talk.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, from a partner's perspective, being, okay, I'm just going to listen. And from the person who's struggling's perspective, it's like, what level do I feel comfortable at? And I'm just going to go there and just say, look, maybe things, maybe you've noticed I'm not feeling great. I don't need a solution. I just need to let you know what's going on because I care. I think, yeah.
Flip side of that, I mean, when women are struggling, or when your friends or community, your family, or even yourself, Maissa, like, how does that show up? I was just interested in the differences as well.
I think there's always that difficulty of overgeneralizing because it is really down to your nature and your personality. Yes, I am a woman. And I've been known to be an oversharer.
Which is brilliant for podcasts.
But then I also equally have friends, one or two members of my own family who hold it all in. Because again, as a woman, especially if you are a mother, you feel inclined to keep things together, to show that's, to be stoic, to be composed. And I think that it does run parallel with sometimes as a partner, as a father, you also feel that need to, well, I've just got to put a strong front. I've just not got to let this get to me. So there's actually a lot of similarities. The difference perhaps is with community. So, Chris, with what you have built and what you've tried to create in the way of a space in the community, you find that easier amongst women. So they're always going to have a community within, whether it's amongst mothers, amongst old childhood friends, with like talking to their mums, talking to their sisters. That community is far more accessible in female spheres and circles than it is with men. And I feel that is probably what is challenging. And when you are in a marriage or a partnership or in a relationship, there is that time lapse, and you don't know how much time it will take you to be prepared enough to come across and say, I'm not looking for a solution. I just care enough and don't want this to be misconstrued or misread. And I just wanted to put it out there. And again, it's how long does it take for that person to open up and say that? Because that could have shortened if you were able to speak in a community setting with somebody else. And I think that's the difference.
I think it's powerful. I want to launch the poll, but not just yet, because I want to come back to you, Chris, as well, because I think that's really, really important. And I think you almost touched on it, I think, earlier in the conversation as well, like, because so many of us here are expats, we come here for work.
Yep.
And almost like our first priority is to make that work, because without that, we can't stay and we can't pay for the school fees and the rents and all that kind of thing. So that means that community, not only have we left that kind of safe space with our childhood friends and our family and that kind of thing, so then our relationships get put in this pressure cooker of, it's just us. But it's really, really important to try and get that sense of community. I mean, I've seen all the longevity studies, and purpose and community always come through as the two things that help people live longer. And it's difficult as an expat, because your first priority has got to be keep the job, pay the bills.
100%. I mean, I think it's more, partly why I built the group was because I came here as a stay-at-home father. I was bored, I was lonely. Every parent and toddler group I went to was full of mums, which, was great. But like, I'm the only dad, and they're like, oh, where's your wife? Oh, she's at work. Oh, okay. And when I came here like 14 years ago, there wasn't as many stay-at-home dads as what there is now. And it's like, now there is dad's group. There is, dads do meetups. We have some guys in the group that stay-at-home dads, they meet up together. But it's like having that role reversal, it was very difficult. My wife went off to work. She's got the career. She does wonderfully. And I was stuck at home with a kid. I walk into a mother and baby and it's like, hi. And like, who's this weirdo? And it's like, but I got over that myself. And I just thought, I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for my kid to be sociable with other kids. And I kind of got over that. And then, I kind of met a few other parents. I met a few other dads that were staying at home, and it was great. And I was like, this is brilliant. So like, why can't we get more people doing this? And then it kind of come, then obviously my kids have grown up, they've gone off to school. But I often see people on the group like, hi, I'm a stay-at-home dad. Any other dads hanging around? And there's quite a few. I think they've set up a WhatsApp group now, and we have the British dads, but then we've got so many different things. So many different things. I mean, there's even WhatsApp groups I didn't even know about. And for me, it's great, because that's what the whole point I did it was for, is to build this community. And then I encourage anyone to do it. I think if people come to me, oh, can I do this? Go for it. I don't want to be involved with it. I mean, there's a guy he set up the Golf Society. I don't like golf. He does. He went off and set it up, and it's massive now. And there's so many guys that do it, but it's about that belonging. And I encourage anybody to go out and build a community for your, it doesn't so much your nationality, but your group of people. Like if you all like sports, if you all like paddle, if you all like tennis or anything, just encourage anyone to just create something. If you don't have it, build it.
Because we keep saying as well, like loneliness is genuinely bad, not only for your mental health, but your physical health as well.
It's a killer.
I think, what was it, the US Surgeon General said it's the equivalent of smoking 14 cigarettes a day. So it genuinely is. They've classed it as a public health concern in the US. Again, interesting market. You are part of our community, so it's time to bring you in as well. So we're gonna launch the first poll, and we're just going to get a sense of what you're experiencing out there. So the first poll right now, the questions are, what's the big pressure point right now for men? Is it work, pressure and performance, money, worries and responsibilities, sleep and exhaustion, relationships and family tension, health, fitness changes, feeling isolated, as we were just saying, or lacking close friends? So please vote. And as usual, there isn't a G, which is all of the above. And I hope you're there. But I mean, out of those, what do you kind of see that is the thing? Like, money, worries, and responsibilities. And when we're seeing it, we saw that in the Pulse survey. Sleep and exhaustion, I think, is going to be a big one for us. But when you're seeing there, what are those kind of things that the guys are really, really struggling with right now as well?
I think it's job security. Obviously, with what's been going on in the past few months, we've all been. I had a few days where I'm like, do I need to leave? Do I need to stay? And it's a lot of people. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that are leaving this year. I've got people that have been here as long as I've been here, and they're leaving after all these years because they don't feel safe here anymore. And it's that job security.
Job security.
It's job security because it's not just a job. Like my wife, it's her job, but her job pays for our accommodation. It pays for her visa.
Yeah.
It's a knock-on effect. And if my wife leaves the company, the kids have to leave the school they've been at for the past 12 years, which is not okay. And it's that having that fear of, it's not like in the UK, you lose your job, you go and find another job. Whereas here, you lose your job, you lose everything.
And that was the pressure point. And we saw that in the Pulse survey as well, wasn't it? That actually, when you looked at people felt at home here, as we do, because it's like the 1, 5, 15 forever. People felt physically safe and emotionally safe. But when it came to job security and when it came to financial worries, that was the thing where they were sticking. So those two things are true at the same time. Like we know, and actually, I think it's a stressor, particularly for men. I mean, I've been fired from more than one job. And every time we go through that, it's like, it's not actually me that I'm worried for. It's my daughter and her lifestyle here in this amazing country, and take her, can we afford the school fees? Do we have to take her out of school? And it's my responsibility to maintain her standard of life rather than my responsibility to my own mental health. And you feel like you're letting people down. I'm just going to bring the results in just so we see. And here we are. I mean, that really gels. Biggest answer, money, worries and responsibilities. And then we've kind of got a bit of an arm wrestle between relationships and family tension, which I think is always connected hand in hand. And also then work pressure and performance. So those three things right now. And I suppose that does link back to the reality of 90% of us are here purely because of we've got a job here. So that is a tension. Where do we go from here? I think we should start kind of looking at what can men do. I mean, Chris, I'll come to you. If a guy is struggling, I mean, when you were struggling, what are the first things that show up? How can we actually kind of almost self-diagnose that something's not quite right and start having that conversation with ourselves? Because I think that's almost like the most important place to start.
Yeah, I think it is. And certainly, for me, as I mentioned before, it is that, withdrawing, and we do it with the best intentions. We're trying to protect, and we're trying to protect those around us. It's just, it doesn't work that way. And so I think, the introspection, then what tends to happen is that we spend a lot of time overthinking things. And that can impact our sleep. And as we all know, sleep is a time when we recover from everything. So if that starts to get impacted, you're just on a spiral downwards. And then what I generally tend to see with guys is this idea of, as you mentioned before, irritability, anger, at silly things. And then obviously what happens with that is we feel ashamed because we've lost our temper with our kids, or we've, I mean, for me, one of the big things was road rage,
it's very hard in this country.
It got,
I know.
But one of the things, so you mentioned about Stoics. So I'm a big believer in Stoic philosophy, like how the Stoics talk about living life. One of the things that is very strong in Stoic philosophy is that, things that happen are amoral. There isn't a good or a bad. Things just happen. our perception of them is what taints them with good, bad, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's the lens through which we see life. When you can start to accept that, you know, certainly for me with the road rage, one of the things that has helped a lot is when I start to feel that it's questioning, has anything actually happened? You know, yes, I've been cut up, but has anything actually happened? No. So why then am I, but again, it's about brain
It's control.
physiology. Yeah.
You don't have control of that situation.
No,
which
because
then,
it's this flight or fight, fight or flight response. And then, but the minute that you do come online or have an awareness of that's when you have the choice, right? You don't have a choice as to whether or not your amygdala is going to fire, but as soon as you know that it's fired, you have a choice as to how you react. And so I think, for me, all of those things were happening. I thought I was protecting my family. And eventually my wife was like, you really need to. And she actually made an appointment and with
it's
our
usually
family
the
members.
case.
Yeah. And I was like, fight against it and then go. And then, my family medicine doctor was brilliant. She was like, look, if you take these pills and it helps, what's the problem with taking pills, right?
Exactly.
It could well be that your brain chemistry just isn't wired quite right, right? So if that were that something, physical illness, you would do something about it. So what's the problem?
Yeah.
And for me, that was a really big turning point as well.
It reminds
interesting lens.
I want to get your thoughts. So you remember we had that conversation with Dr. Rita, and she was talking about subtitles almost between partners, which is we think we're withdrawing, but then how that silence is received on the other side.
Yeah.
And if we can actually remove that period of silence and withdrawal, we would get to a better place quicker.
Yes.
That's what I was just trying to
Oh, sorry.
say.
Go on.
That was what I was also touching upon with the fact that inability to kind of, shorten that time frame from that opening up. Because women, I don't know, I seem so generalizing, but it's, we have really high levels of emotional intelligence. It's kind of like within our nature. We can pick up on things even before they happen. So you can read when someone is slightly different or off, and it could be completely undetectable by somebody else, but especially if there's that kind of partnership dynamic. But then there's also that they don't really want to impose. They don't want to kind of like, infringe on your kind of time. But it's the longer you remain in that stage of withdrawal, the more it is then, again, misinterpreted as, why don't you want to talk? We are supposed to have an open, kind of like, that ability to share and share a burden and share what's on your mind. And that's how it kind of like affects, and I think the Pulse survey was talking about relationships, because on the one hand, I can see the man, or the male perspective rather, questioning, why am I not able to address this or resolve this? Just give me a bit of time and I'm sure I can get to the bottom of it. And on the flip side of that, that time can take days, weeks, 2 weeks, 3
Years.
weeks.
Absolutely.
And then,
this gels with a couple of observations that are coming in from the audience, and I'll keep them anonymous. But one question coming in, going, in your view, is men's mental health more about individual weakness, or how society has trained men to disconnect from their emotions? Which is one really good point. And then another audience members, also asking, making this point of saying, women and mothers tend to share their social circles and clubs, while men, we shy away from serious conversations, even with friends, because we feel like we're laying our lives bare for somebody else. And I think sometimes it's almost like, again, it's that I don't want to trouble you. I mean, I remember when we had that great doctor from Mediclinic, whose name,
We had
sorry.
many great doctors.
Yeah, I've seen so many.
There's only
Sorry,
the
I
one.
can't- And that's really good. When we were talking about men's mental health last time, it's like you almost feel like you don't want to be a burden. And I think that's sometimes a barrier as well. But, Chris, from your perspective, what was the thing that stopped you from coming forward? And then what was the thing that went, right, okay, I'm going to seek help?
I think it's more judgment because you feel. I mean, that's what Chris was saying before. Like, I think for a man, it's my job is to protect my family and be there for my family and be that man to protect them. And if I'm there going, oh, yeah, I'm not very well, it kind of shows weakness, which a lot of men don't like to show weakness. I mean, I talk to my friends. I've got friends of mine. I've got a very good friend of mine, and he talks to me every day, and he tells me all his problems, and we chat about stuff, and I try and help him. And, he sometimes I'm just like, leave me alone. He gets a bit too much, but he doesn't bleed his heart out, but he comes to me all the time to talk about stuff, and I help him, and I want to help him, but I think a lot of guys don't have that circle. I mean, I've been here a long time. I've got 3 friends. I've got friends that have been here for a long time. I've got friends that have left, and it's a very transitional place. So you have friends that you're great with, and then 2 weeks later, we're leaving. So okay. And you kind of lose that circle. Yeah. But when you've got somebody you can talk to, it's a great thing. I'm lucky enough, I've got a big group, there's 8,500 people. I never feel I'm on my own. I know if I put something on there, there's always going to be somebody who's going to help me. If I struggle, depending on what it is, I mean, I message Chris sometimes for things. I message my other friend for things because he has a different perspective of what Chris does. There's 3 guys that helped me do all the men's time to help, but they're all different in their own little way. Chris is very calm. My other friend's he's very excitable, and I talk to him about different problems, and then my other friend's a little bit different from Chris, and they all deal with it in a different way. And I think if you don't have the friends or people around you, it's a struggle because you kind of retract into yourself. Like you said, it's men retract themselves. And I lucky enough, I have a wonderful partner. She knows me better than I know myself. She comes in, you're right. Yep. No, you're not. Okay. But I talk to my wife via music. I was saying to you before, I find if I put music on, it kind of, it lets her know my mood.
Right.
If I'm angry, I'll listen to rock music. Like this, I played a song.
You really do wear your heart on your sleeve.
Oh, I do, mate. Honestly, I literally bleed emotions. But if I'm angry, I'll put rock music on. If I'm feeling sad, I'll put on some songs that not so much make me upset, but make me remember things that make me upset, because then I can get that out of my system.
Right.
It's a very strange way to do it, but
I think it's beautiful because
music helps.
It shows.
I think about road rage. When I'm in my car, I put music on, and I put very loud music on because then for me it then blocks out all the things I don't want to deal with. Because
So if you walk into Chris's house and he's playing Enya,
you're spiritual, floating around the kitchen.
Then he really
happy.
does need help.
But I think, and this is something that came through yesterday when I was having our conversation, and we were talking with Manny from Mentality. Obviously, you've got British Dads Dubai, and actually, I'm just going to give another shout out here. Mohammed was also talking about another support group, any-man.com. But again, we're really, really busy. Really, really busy. And then you throw everything else on, whether or not it's you've got children, whether you're a new dad, which can actually be quite destabilizing because all of a sudden you might be removed from your community, and you're just there with your new baby, but you're not seeing your friends every week and all that kind of thing. So that loneliness, and it's like, I've been here 18 years and I still think ChatGPT is probably my best mate right now. But the fact that community is so important, but it takes intention, and actually we need to work on this rather than just think it's going to happen.
Yes.
So I want to come to you about that.
I mean, very much so. And I think, this is the thing. Actually, one point I just want to kind of touch on, because we've used it a few times, is this idea of, weakness and men thinking that, because they can't do something, they are in some way weak or incapable. And it's you kind of want to shake people sometimes, because getting away from this idea that because you can't do something, you're weak, it's so frustrating, because at some point in our life, we have not been able to do everything we can now do.
Yeah.
Right? So we were weak before and now we're strong? It's like, those two words are I find so frustrating in conversations.
Very limiting.
Very limiting. Absolutely. That's a really great way of putting it. And this idea that it's not weakness. You know, if you're having a conversation, like for me with coaching, I don't need to talk to people, you know, they don't have to like tell me every last little thing that's ever happened to them. You know, I deal with the present and the future. That's what coaching does, right? Therapists generally deal with the past, right? But the only point we have in our lives at any point is now.
I love that because I
Yeah.
wanted to bring that into
Yeah.
the conversation as well. And I guess it's that you know, again, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
And there's a great book which was like Confessions from a Psychotherapist's Couch. And it basically says, you know, 99% of people in the planet either live yesterday or tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
both of
Yes.
which
Yeah.
don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
or there is nothing you can do about
Yeah.
them,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
you have
Whatever's
no
happened in
control
the
over
past,
it.
there is
Can't change it.
literally nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And what the future holds for you, you have you have limited control.
Yeah.
Very, very limited control. And I think sometimes as human beings, we seem to think that, you know, we have so much more control over
Yeah,
things
yeah.
than we actually do.
Yeah.
But if we could just, you know, let go of the past or our worries about the future and just deal with what is right
Yeah.
in
front of
our
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
Live
would
for
be
today.
so much happier.
Yeah.
So much happier.
I'm just going to bring in a question from Elvis as well. Thank you for your question. Or should I say, oh, thank you very much. Sorry, I know you've probably heard that about a million times. I couldn't resist. But again, how do you overcome, and you said judgment. I mean, I've lived with shame all my life as a child abuse victim. But how do you overcome the fear of being judged for expressing your mental health issues? And I want to ask that to both of you, because I remember it's like, the first time you actually talk about it, you're terrified because you think you're going to be judged, and almost every single time you're surprised, and you understand, like, people don't back off. You know, actually, people will lean forward. So having the courage to come forward and talk is taking that. Again, you talk about incremental first steps.
Yeah.
But how do you overcome that? And I think that's a question to all three of you, actually.
Yeah, but it's just because, you know, when you were talking, I just realized that fear of being judged is because you've already judged yourself. So you're
Yes.
literally amplifying your own judging of yourself
Yeah.
and then outsourcing it to other people, claiming that, oh, it's them that are going to be. So I think it all starts
yeah.
within,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, no, totally.
It's like
Yeah,
if you are that kind of person who, whether you've always had it, whether you've worked towards it, and you realize that I am not judging myself at all, then that fear completely disappears.
I love that.
Because
I
it's
love
you
that.
judging yourself.
I remember that phrase as well. What is it? It's like, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I'm who I think you think I am. You know? And it's like, you know, we're imagining and we're making
Yeah,
up stories and we have no idea. So Elvis, I would say, like, you've literally no idea. And actually, I it's never backfired on me where that kind of honesty, because actually most people are just genuinely decent. And also we see from all of the statistics, you know, we say you are not alone, you know, and all of us are struggling. But to come back, you know,
Yeah.
again, within the community, how do you see, you know, if we're going to give advice to men, you know, how to overcome that stigma, how to overcome that? I mean, you talked about judgment, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just opening that door. I mean, I found there's a guy in the UK who set up a thing called "Are You Okay, Bro?"
Yeah.
And I love it. I think it's amazing. Like, I often put it on the group. I just put the picture on, "Are you okay, bro?" Just message your friend.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I said to you before about music, like there's a song called "Call Me Mate."
Yeah.
And if you haven't listened to it, listen to it, because it resonated with me an awful lot, because just call me. You know, I mean, my WhatsApp profile picture said, "I'd rather listen to your story than attend your funeral."
Yeah.
And that resonated with me massively, because over the years I've lost probably 4 friends from suicide, and we've lost quite a few guys on the group through suicide. And it's horrendous, because the statistics, you know, this like, people don't see a way out. So they see that suicide is the only option, but it's like, I think once you've got to take that step.
Yeah.
You know, I took the step a long time ago, and then I did the podcast with Kieran.
Yeah.
It blew up for me. It was massive. And seeing what I can do myself helps other people. It's having that whole thing, but just message a friend. Yeah. I mean, I get messages all the time.
I saw the latest statistic around suicide as well. It's like
Yeah.
worldwide, 80% of suicides are men.
It's scary.
I don't know if you remember, there was a great speech by Paddy Pimblett, who's a UFC fighter. You know, he just won his second world title. Hours after finding out that one of his friends had obviously tragically taken the decision to end his life. And he was like, again, it's like, always, whether it's as dramatic as that or if it's just you are struggling, it's that I would rather you come forward and tell me as your friend, as your partner, as your brother, as your, your colleague, than suffer in silence. So that's there. I want to bring the second poll in because we've actually only got about 10 minutes left, and as usual, these conversations fly by. But I want to bring the second poll in because we want to focus on what can potentially help as well. So the questions are, and I want you to lean in again. Over the next 30 days, what do you think would help you the most? Better sleep and energy. Oh my God, that would be good. A realistic fitness routine, and actually we should get kind of also spend some time talking about the physical and the mental, because obviously they're not two different things. Less stress and more calm. Enya rather than rock music. A way to talk without feeling judged, which I think really just connects to what we were just talking about. And stronger friendships and connection, community that we were been talking about. So please vote. A few things there. While the guys are voting out there, while the audience is voting out there, we've talked about stronger friendships and connection. Support with money, pressure, and planning. I forgot one, but we know that we've talked about that already, and we've also talked about stronger friendships. Though one of our listeners earlier was talking about financial worries as well. And are there? We're not going to give financial advice on this podcast, but are there ways that we can actually deal with that kind of worry as opposed to? And again, I think it's like stop avoiding and maybe lean in. It's the same as, is it the same principle as the mental health conversation generally, which is like, don't withdraw, but actually try and have the courage to step forward. But I want to come better sleep and energy. We talked about it before, but a realistic fitness routine that sticks as well. Because one of the questions that came in from an audience member earlier as well was like, we're seeing a rise in certain types of physical conditions. And is this a result of men pushing things down? Does it actually translate into physical health ailments? We see this every time we sit down with GPs, that there is this connection between mental and physical. And when you're coaching people, Chris, and you're a trim guy, you're a lot fitter than me. You're also closer to 60, you look younger than me, which really annoys me. Let's touch upon that as the impact that actual physical health and mental health and how they can go hand in hand.
The mind-body connection is well researched and well studied, and is not a conspiracy theory or anything like that. How your body deals with stress impacts your physical being. Right. And so, whether that is, in terms of weight gain, it can be quite dramatic weight loss, disease. There's a lot of link between stress, which creates inflammation, and inflammation creates most diseases that we find. So, and chronic stress is something that people are dealing with a lot more these days. And so I think, physical health, physical activity is massively important in terms of mental health, because maybe not right now, the way the weather's going, but getting outside, getting some sunshine, being in as much nature as you can has massive benefits to, and doing, again, it's incremental, right? It's being consistent and being patient. So when you're consistent, right, and you need to be patient, because it will take longer than you think it will do. And then you have to be compassionate with yourself. And these are the three key words for my business. You have to be compassionate with yourself, because you're going to mess it up and then you're going to get back to it. All right. But physical activity. And when I was PTing, used to go to so many parties and people would say, oh, I should go to the gym. And I'm like, why? Like, why should you go to the gym? I choose to go to the gym because I love that environment. Like, I love being in gyms. I don't talk to anybody, but I love being there. If you don't, I always think about stress as being a bucket that we all carry around. And things add to that bucket that create more stress, and things take out of that bucket, which the things you do to try and relieve some of that stress should be that. If you're going to the gym and punishing yourself in some way because you don't really enjoy it, but you think you should do it, you're not taking out of your bucket, you're adding to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think finding something that you enjoy doing, whether it's the community, community events. I mean, there are lots of men's groups popping up that are based around physical fitness. Whether it's, you go to classes and you actually start to make some connections within the classes, whatever it might be. Find something you enjoy doing that makes you feel better, that you come out of and actually, you might have a smile on your face, or it's just stopped you from worrying for, that hour or 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And do that, but do it consistently, be patient with it, and be compassionate with yourself.
We had Dr. Mahmood on, didn't we? Literally the last podcast as well, which is all the podcast before, which was, he was talking again from Valen's Clinic about, if you try and do too much too quickly, and you are like, oh, I'm going to go and run a marathon, and you hate, it's going to stop. It's not sustainable. And it's like, how do you build yourself a kind of sustainable roadmap? I'm going to bring in one last point because Anthony messaged in going, he's talking about knowing how to identify it. And we've had podcasts with Johannes talking about health literacy. And I think mental health literacy is a thing, particularly for men, because they don't really know what the actual signs they're supposed to be looking for. So as we bring this conversation kind of to a close, we've got 4 minutes left. Some of those warning signs, or how can men start having that conversation again with themselves, Chris?
I think it's what you start. You start to notice you withdraw yourself from things. You lose interest in things that you used to enjoy. I love watching movies, and then when I don't want to watch anything, I know there's something wrong with me. I know that I'm not, and I've done it before. I retract myself into myself. I'll switch my phone off. I'll ignore my friends. I don't bother messaging people, and I go very quiet. And I know I do that. And my wife, she always spots it, but I know within myself, I'm not okay, so I need to do something. I mean, when you messaged me a few weeks ago saying, do you want to do this? I was like, nope, don't want to do that. Don't want to go out of the house. I want to stay at home. I do it to protect myself because I don't want to, but I come and do these things because I know that the benefit for myself is great. Because I'm at the house, I'm meeting new wonderful people, and I'm talking, which helps me a lot. So I think trying to find, like Chris said before, finding something that you enjoy. I mean, there's loads of groups. There's a guy called Lee. He set up Man of the Mile.
Shadwell.
It's absolutely amazing.
Shadwell.
It started off as just a walk every week. It's now turned into this paddle thing, and he's doing wonderful things. But it's a great release for people because I don't think a lot of people go and play paddle because they want to play paddle. They go to play paddle because they meet people. And like me and Chris have said, like we do our breakfasts. There's not just the same people there. We don't all come for one reason. We're all from different walks of life. It's like you do this, I do that, and we've got CEO, we've got people from all scales, and that's the thing with a community. You have a lot of different people from different backgrounds that have different experiences, and it's great because you meet people and you're like, oh wow, I didn't know you did that, and I've met so many wonderful people over the past 14 years through my group, and it's great because I also love to sit in the room and just watch 30 or 40 guys, and they're all just talking. And I sit there and I'm like, I did this.
Yes.
I built this. This started for me and my friend going for
And I'm
breakfast.
glad you can actually own that.
I love it.
Well,
I don't like taking praise. I like to shy away from the cameras. I'm not one person that stands up and goes, I'm Chris. I hate it. I don't like the attention. But to sit back and look at something that I've built and, it's come about and everything's kind of fallen into place and people are sitting talking and, we've had people get jobs from breakfasts, just from coming out for a breakfast. Got a new job, or they've got a new business or they've got this and, everyone meets everyone. I mean, Chris has been to many breakfasts, but yourself have been to a few. But to see these people connecting is just amazing,
So I'm going to grab the talking stick back for a second there, Chris. Fadi, just to let you know, yes, this recording will be made available. We always turn this into a podcast, which is on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music. Please go, please dial in, please give us a 5-star rating. Thank you very much. And it's also on the YouTube channels as well. And we've got a really big audience for it on YouTube as well. So you will be able to catch up. There has been a lot of insight. And I'm going to kind of come back and let's just wrap up. Like for you, Maissa, what's been your takeaway from this past hour of conversation?
For me, I feel that it's a very... It's interesting how there are parallels because a lot of the times people will always say, it's different for women than it is for men. And I do feel that there are a lot of parallels. I think a lot of it is really down to that willingness to actually do something about it when you are aware of how it impacts people around you. And as females, I think we get to that quicker because we've usually got so many codependents. But even if you weren't, like you didn't have kids, you kind of sense that because we do have more of a, like an ongoing dialogue that takes place on the daily with a lot of people. But I think it's actually very, very heartwarming to know that there are things that are actually happening on the ground, and that there is, because I've got brothers, I've got sons, and I hate this idea of anyone having to live or go through something and feeling that they're on their own and they can't share it because it's not the right thing to do. That to me is very tragic. And it's really, really encouraging and very heartwarming to know that, there are communities and there are platforms, and I just want it to multiply and cascade throughout.
And it will, and it will. Yes. Chris, no pressure, but I'm going to mic drop moment to you on this one. I think one thing that came through there as well, and it's interesting because I think sometimes our self-narrative is a really big thing, and men, I think, have a problem with compassion towards themselves, and I think you were saying that. So if you were to make a last observation, what would it be? I
would say when you do anything to make yourself feel better, that obviously doesn't harm other people, celebrate. Men don't celebrate. We do the things, we take a step, and if it doesn't work, what we do is focus on the failure, not on the celebration of actually taking the courage and having the courage to take the step.
Absolutely.
Just celebrate that.
Yeah. Love that.
I love that
that's
too.
The mic drop moment. Thank you so much for joining us on Connect for Health today. This has been a really important conversation. From my perspective as well, it's like, as a guy that lived with shame for most of his life, I just like, you are not alone. And so many guys suffer in silence and think it's just them. It's not. It's everybody. We're all struggling. So if you are struggling, please reach out, join a community like Chris's or any of the communities we've talked about today, but don't struggle in silence. We're together, we all thrive. And I think that's just the message I want to leave you with. And also cut yourself some slack, be kind to yourself. So from Connect for Health, thank you very much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Oh, quick one before you go. After this is finished, you will be asked for feedback. Please give it to us because it's a gift and it helps us improve these conversations as always. And then, go and check out the podcast, go and check out YouTube and subscribe. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.